The top 100 agents are the best of the best, listing and selling more than any other agent in Australia.
Sold. Congratulations, sir. Well bought.
These are the practices, actions and beliefs of the most successful agents in Australian real estate. Raw, honest and completely uncut. Welcome to REB's Secrets of the Top 100 Agents.
Well, g'day everyone, it's Liam Garman here, editor of Real Estate Business, back today with another episode of the REB Podcast. And I have two guests joining me in the studio, and they're back by popular demand. I had these two gentlemen sitting across from me in September last year, where we unpacked everything that was going on in real estate. I actually came in with about 10 or so questions, and I don't think I asked a single one of them because we just unpacked everything that was going on. But today we do have a theme, and we're going to try and stick to it, which is what will make the agent of tomorrow. And there's a lot changing in the real estate industry at the moment. Agencies up and down the country are feeling the brunt of off-the-cuff data compliance checks from the OAIC. We've seen plenty of news stories around cyber attacks and AI issues that are impacting offices. But also we have the AML/CTF reforms that are coming in July. So what makes the agent of tomorrow might not be the agent of today. So joining me to unpack how you can future-proof yourself and make sure you're ready for a changing environment is DiJones CEO Dean Mackie and Brent May, Chief Operating Officer. Gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. How are you going?
Really well, thank you. I'm actually really excited to be here. It sort of feels like the last conversation, it's just rolling into this one, right? So I was also quite surprised how quickly the last one went, and I'm keen to dive into this topic, though.
That's going to be a fantastic topic. And Brent, how are you going?
Yeah, likewise, really well. Actually, a lot's transpired since we've last spoken, even though it feels like it was yesterday. The world's moving pretty quickly, right? There's a lot going on there. So I think there's a fair bit to unpack today. So it'll be an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
What's the saying, you're jealous of people that live in unremarkable times type thing, but we are living in remarkable times, which means that there's going to be a lot of change. But just about 12 hours ago, DiJones was the recipient of an award at the REB Awards, the Training and Education Program of the Year. Dean, you went up on stage to accept that. DiJones University. Talk us through it.
I'll tell you, it was one of those things, I think, for Brent and I and DiJones, I think we've always held in our hearts the ambition to create a business that allows people to become more than they could if they were trying to do it on their own, if that makes sense. How do we help people achieve more? And in fact, the conversation we just had in the corridor was all about that. And so at the heart of our business, we come up with our vision, which is to give power to your purpose if you work inside our business, but equally to our customer. And the only way you can really do that and help people unlock more is to really provide them the resources and the tools, training, mindset, environment for them to become their best selves. And so for Brent and I guess, when we sort of went through this process, even talking about our underlying values of the business, it's all about how do we get better? How do we stay curious? How do we improve? How do we ask our team to make their mark? And I think that a lot of the training that goes on in real estate historically is a lot of talk at go and learn, scripts and dialogues and other bits and pieces. But they aren't always the things that people need to become their best selves. So I think that Brent and I and the team worked really hard at coming up with a series of tools and a platform and a process that we can put people through that help them unlock more. And so, how do you do that? Sure, there's base level skills, there's competencies, there's goal setting, there's all of those things. And at the heart of it's a bit of life on purpose as well. So the program we design is really multi-tiered that allows people to tap into where it suits them and for what they need and move them through so we can accelerate their growth. So DiJones University is a concept. I'll let Brent talk about that concept because I think, you were a bit of the brainchild in that idea, the ideation of that and the framework that sits below it. But it's, we were really happy to win that last night because it was one of those things where it just reinforces the fact we're on the right track. There are so many other things that we do for our team, but at the heart of our business is our people. And we're about here today to talk about the future of real estate and a real estate agent. And sure, they're going to be tech-enabled, right? And there's a lot of things that are going to be required for their success going forward, which is different going forward than what it is today and was, in fact, yesterday. But at the heart of it, we're still a people business. So getting our people to be their best selves is really what's driving that ambition.
Brent?
Yeah, I think thinking through the framework, there was a lot of intention around the fact that it wasn't an academy. We probably started with our first concept being an academy, but actually we needed to take it beyond that. The learning environment of today is actually an adult concept when you think about it. Sure, it's great to be inspired. Inspiration's important, but the internal motivation to want to continue to learn, I think, is at the heart of our culture. And it's close to a zero tolerance if you're actually at the polar opposite end of that. Dean and I are constantly learning. We always say we don't know everything, but gee, if we don't, we're going to really dig hard to try and find out or find someone who does. And so constantly question-based, if you think about the concept of DiJones University, what it actually says to you, it's an adult concept, first cab off the rank, right? Which is you're coming into a space and what you're about to take out of that space is unique to you. So then we had to really think through framework of saying, okay, well, if I'm a new agent to real estate and I've just crossed over from another profession, I'm probably looking to get some foundational work done first. Therefore, the content has to actually provide for that, but you're listening for that in amongst potentially more complex content that might be more suited, to Dean's point, to an experienced agent that might have been in the game for 20 odd years. However,
who just needs help with planning and goal setting and some stuff like that.
Absolutely. So the framework had to provide for all, and I think that's really important. And I think what underpinned it was a really strong thought process about the severity of the change that we're going through at the moment, and how it's not just a zero tolerance on our side of the fence, but actually the world has a zero tolerance on this at the moment. And that, what I mean by that is, if you're not in learning mode right now, you're 100% guaranteed to be falling behind. You can't say, hey, what I've been doing for the last 20 years is going to get me through for the next 10. I think we're at that inflection point that actually says, no, it's not.
Yeah, agreed.
It's actually, anyone who wants to come and debate that, by the way, that's an exciting debate. But if you're still sitting there right now thinking, actually, what I know to this point has got me through to today, and I'm potentially writing really good numbers off that, in the next 2 to 3 years, the world's going to be very different. That's my personal belief.
It'll be different in the next 6 months, just with the speed of the way things are changing, the need to constantly relearn, it's so you're spot on.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, Brent, the severity of change is going to be quite big. What's going to separate someone who is a winner today versus a winner in 6 months' time to a year's time? Who's going to survive the severity of change?
All right, so that's a big question,
It's a big
right?
question.
It's a big question, but if we start to break it down, this is 3 buckets that I think through, which is you've got that charismatic salesperson that I think over the last 2, 3, 4 decades has definitely had a doorway to run through. Know you, like you, trust you is something that is fairly commonly known within the industry. And if you're new to real estate, that's the first groundwork that you've got to get done is actually got to know you. Right? I can't progress past that. But social proof, as the years went on and digital started to become a thing, we've gone from, property displayed in real estate windows through to property displayed online and internet version 2, right? The digital profiling aspects of that still allowed charisma to get you over the line in the living room. The other 2 buckets I think through now are the technicals and the fundamentals. So, understanding what a sound micro business actually is now that's service orientated, and then, not necessarily being data dependent, but actually being data literate. Because, I don't know how you're feeling about, the new technology that's kind of sitting with us at the moment, but I can tell the obvious difference between something that's been written by AI or something that's been prompted, intelligently by AI.
Super different. Yeah.
Very different, right? So then that puts us into the technical aspects. So the way I think through the changes that we've got to get through, technicals, fundamentals, and the charismatic side of the salesperson that still has to play a role as well. And then if I think about how I link that up to DiJones University and the content that sits there. So I guess big question, but here's my thoughts on that is you're going to have to know the fundamentals here. You're going to have to understand why systems are doing what they're doing and how they can better serve you. You're going to have to be a customer experience-led person. So you're going to have to reverse engineer this process. And you're actually going to have to take that thought process of what am I trying to solve here? What's the problem I'm actually trying to solve? Because there's lots of problems there. And the efficiency of the transaction is definitely something that's in question at the moment. And, Dean would say, Dean would often say, I think the future holds less agents doing more. But actually, this is a good conversation to dive a little bit deeper into that.
Because if you say that, it's not a simple proposition, right?
No, it's not.
So I've been saying that for a number of years because I can see the future is that. I think it'll be less agents having to handle more volume at a lower fee. Now, if you take that and you overlay it over the existing paradigm, the existing model, then it's flawed and really at massive risk. So agents themselves have to push themselves through this change. And even though they can't necessarily yet see or understand it, that's the key, is helping agents who are making good money at the moment, earning a good income, see that things are changing. And if they don't start to make the shift, by the time they get to the point at which the shift is needed, it'll be too late. So I think a big part of what we've been driving over the last handful of years, and even before that, just in terms of concept, before things started to change at the speed that they're changing, was to get agents to understand that that's a really fundamental thing. It's like, well, every part of the process, the role that they play in the process, what they have to do and not do, what they have to. If you think about what's going to stay the same and what's going to be different, it's quite an interesting list. And if you put that list down every 6 months, it sort of changes a little bit, right? So sort of to summarise that, you think, well, those who are going to be the most successful are the ones who show the level of adaptability required to keep evolving. And that requires education and training and being uncomfortable and being in an environment that allows you to take risks.
Can't rely on business as usual.
We can't. So it's the old Yoda saying, you must unlearn what you've learned, and then take on a learn it all approach. And that's quite challenging, to try and spin all the discs. In the current market, we're just talking about the fact we've got people quite emotional at the moment because they've got a lot on their plate. They've got vendors who are potentially not selling the properties that they want, longer days on market, they've got kids at home, they're, living there. And now I'm saying, well, and you need to learn all this new stuff.
Yeah.
It's quite a big challenge.
Probably getting a lot of abusive calls from buyers as well as prices go up in a lot of areas. So, you'd be copying it from a lot of areas.
Well, yeah.
One thing I do want, and I knew by having you two in that I can just throw my notes out the door because I've been writing new questions as we've been going. You mentioned lower fee, which I thought it's interesting. We've had a lot of coaches, a lot of mentors that have come in, and one of their big teaching points has been never negotiate your fee. Dean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, I think that's a really, good thing to focus on for sure. Like, I think that from an agent's perspective, if you're a good agent, then you should definitely ask for a higher fee. In fact, I look at some of the tools that we're providing to our customers because it's not just the learning and the systems that are improving, but the way we can find a buyer now has massively changed to what it was 12 months ago, particularly with agentic AI. And if you've got sovereignty over your data and you've got some things in place, you can actually provide a lower cost option to the vendor to find the buyer that you're looking for, as opposed to just put it up on a portal and wait. There's different things going on now. So even teaching agents how to do that is quite significant. But I think what I mean by that, I think Brent said it before, it will be customer led.
Yeah.
The customer think about the friction points that have existed in our sales process and the fee that an agent gets paid. I think we've been pretty fortunate. When you think about the amount of work that goes on, it's quite a significant amount of work, but from the public's perspective, it looks like a pretty significant fee. When you're charging 2% on a $5 million sale, it's a decent amount of money, right? So people are saying, how come this is the case? And as technology improves and AI improves, and there's going to be a lot more ability for people to do parts of the process themselves, understand more than what they understood before, and all of that enablement, the question is as well, what's the value of the agent? And where does the agent intersect with the customer, and how they provide value? So those value points are changing. Yeah. And so as technology improves, and we're finding already that we can sell properties in the first 14 days of a campaign to our aggregated buyer database through very specific targeting in 14 days. So it's not, and we're getting some pretty reasonable numbers on being able to sell property well before we get it to portal in a shorter period of time. So then you start going, well, hold on, how much of the process is actually being made more efficient? And how many more transactions could you do in that environment with not going through the normal 6-week exercise? So the efficiencies from that, and then technology interaction and the expectation of the customer, I think will drive a new iteration of how all of that looks. Now, I'm not quite sure what that looks like yet, but as technology improves, it will become apparent that you'll need to be more efficient, more focused, and be delivering better value at different points. And I think for certain agents in certain price points, I think there's still going to be a pretty big value premium you can get if you're providing services. And I actually think there might even be a case to improve fees in some instances. If you're an agent providing extra tools and resources and a better sell-through rate for a customer and achieving premium outcome, you might actually find you can charge a higher fee. Not sure. But I certainly think that the ones that don't innovate and don't improve, who are really just out there doing the same old, that are not innovating, then I think they're the ones going to be under pressure to consistently go. Their differentiator will be fee. So I think there'll be a part of the market that will start to shift, and you'll see agents that are providing a certain type of experience may still command certain fees. And I think the ones that aren't are going to have to sort of keep dropping their fee level, which will put pressure on the market.
Well, you'll have a two extreme ends of it, people that are performing really well and people that are racing to the bottom. When we were talking about the severity of change, Dean, you said that, and it could happen in 6 months. The market in just 6 months could be really, really different. I'll throw this open to the both of you. Brent first. What do you think the market's going to look like in 6 months? And in that, I think that's fair to say that's the short term, right? What are some of the biggest changes that agents are going to have to get ready for starting today? Brent, starting with yourself.
Yeah, okay, so let's go up to the 30,000 foot view, and just to frame it up as to how I'm thinking about that question. At the core of technology, it's deflationary. The only thing that stops that deflationary process flowing all the way through to consumer is generally a business that might trap it with a moat. If you've got the ability to trap it with a moat, you can probably hold margins, yeah? But I'm not even going to drop you into the agent of tomorrow. I'll drop you into the agent of today, i.e. what's actually available today. I'll just talk a little bit about my world. Right now, today, I wake up. I've had millions of things done for me overnight based on a relationship that I'm now having with my PC that's running AI, right? It's now beyond me prompting that. It's now actually saying, hey, based on the conversation you and I had 2 days ago, here's some core content that I think would be pretty interesting based on the way you're thinking on a newsletter that you could put out. As an example, that's one thing. And if you think about, one of the core marketing pieces that an agent's relied on for decades, it's the basic newsletter, right?
Which, by the way, is in a very analog,
it is
non-responsive way.
Yeah.
Send it out, hope someone opens it, don't know if they read it, what they did with it.
Yeah.
That's the history. But agents go, tick, okay, I've done that.
Yeah. Very rote checklist kind of mentality.
Yeah.
That's just not going to cut it.
So my ability to move through workload now, I would probably be underselling it at a 10x. So, if we were saying at 1 time speed, this is what you were capable of, an agent is easily capable of 10 times that today. Provided a couple of things. Provided you're using the tools, the technicals, the fundamentals. Yep, you still need the, that personality in the living room. Don't get me wrong, you still need that relationship of trust, but you overlay it with your capability of using these tools, and you've found yourself in a world that very few are in at the moment. Now I want you to think through the supply or the capacity of that service that exists nationally within our industry. So if you think about supply and demand ratios, which I do all the time, we have, and water finds its own level, and they naturally find an even keel. So based on the efficiency or deficiencies of a business that it's supplying a service, we marry that up with human horsepower to be able to meet that efficiency level. We're genuinely sitting here today saying, right, that current supply of service in our industry just got 10 times more efficient. Did we bring 10 times more stock to market? So there's an interesting question. So for me right now, we've got an imbalance, a supply imbalance versus the demand that's actually sitting on the back end of that service.
It's sitting on the current model, though. It's
sitting on the current model. So one or two things is probably going to happen in the next 6 months. One, sales velocity is going to improve in our industry because actually there were a lot of people sitting on the fringes that wanted our service and we just weren't getting to it. And I think that's pretty fair. Like if I have a look at, we've got some proprietary products that we mentioned, last time we were talking, from a buyer perspective, we've got a significantly large proprietary pool of buyers that sits in this state. If I have a look at that, like we're not in the hundreds, right? We're in the tens of thousands. These are people we've physically met. Now, would I say that our organisation is satisfying the need for helping them in the real estate service side of their life? Absolutely not. We'd be kidding ourselves if we were to say that.
That's probably one of our biggest frustrations over the years is that the agent meets and comes into contact with so many people on every campaign, but they've had no way in which to actually capture all that information and service it in a meaningful way because they're just so focused on trying to find the buyer for that property. But there are so many so much need for service that we're missing. And I sort of always have sort of said it to Brent. I said it's like we've got this river of gold running past our door, and we're just picking up little bits of it. Like the sieve's not fine enough to actually catch it all. So what Brent's talking about here is actually there's a heap of volume out there that goes unattended just because of agent inefficiency or inability or capability to get to it.
Yeah, if I think about the rise of buyer advocacy in this country following other models, where's it actually coming from? It's coming from an imbalance in the demand for that service versus the supply of that service, right? That's where it's coming from. And that's how businesses are formed in the first place. I think for the first time, agency is now well positioned to 10x its efficiency, to make good on some promises that it should already have been making good on, but actually you've only got two hands and technology has been lagging in order to solve some of these problems. And I think the ultimate unlock here, not just for real estate agencies and agents, and also for all personas that are related to the transaction, whether it be landlord, investor, buyer, seller, it doesn't matter, is we could unlock an industry here that actually has and has always wanted to transact at a faster pace with more volume. Yeah. The age-old, like you think about the bottleneck or limitation, there's plenty of statistics out there saying, what's the average time someone makes a move? I would say to the two of you, you're going to both probably give me the same answer, 7 years. In some areas, that's shifted out to 10 years. What's that actually saying? Is that because there's no desire to want to move earlier, or is that to say that actually the transaction was so painful, it took me 7 years to get over it?
It's hard for people to go through the process of buying and packing, finding something else, and then there's stamp duty and capital gains tax implications and all the other bits of stickiness that sits around it. That it's quite a complicated exercise for people.
So looking at this from a very tactile perspective, improving the efficiency is an amazing North Star to follow, but how? Simply, and I'll throw this open to the both of you because I'm sure that your insights into the day-to-day changes of how would be greatly appreciated by a lot of our listeners.
It's a great conversation. I think there's a few parts to answer that though, because I think before you can really get to the efficiencies, the framework that you're actually setting up is quite crucial. Because the issue we have in our industry is it's been a cottage-based industry for some time, very silo-based, fragmented, and consequently not a lot of things talk. There's not a lot. The infrastructure doesn't allow you to actually treat the customer in a way that's really, you got visibility over what their needs are and they can actually get what they need really fast and quick from you. So I think that's the first part. I think that the issue for a lot of smaller offices that don't have access to scale, and I think a lot of franchises are actually in the same boat, that they're still quite isolated and individual in terms of the way that they operate, is they haven't got the framework and the connectivity and the collaboration to actually make it happen. So Brent and I really said, look, before we can get to this, we've got to put framework, we've got to collaborate, we've got to create systems that do all those things before you can actually then get into delivering the efficiency benefits right at a local level. Otherwise, you can go and buy some technology off the shelf that fixes 1% of a problem, but it only fixes that 1% of the problem. And then you've got agents dealing with 42 different systems on any given day to get their job done.
And there's a long tail of its inefficiency.
Massively, right? So I think that we've gone, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's actually make some significant investment into infrastructure that does that. In fact, it's probably not a bad time, Brent. I might hand over to you because I know that you've got, we're presenting some stuff next week, in fact, which is another iteration of efficiency improvements to enable the agent to be able to do a better job. So taking stuff away and making it really high value for them to remove that stuff and allow them to do other things that they can be good at, which is talking to the customer and creating connection and all those other things. So, we've got the next iteration of that getting launched next week. Perhaps it might be worth touching on some of those things as examples.
Yeah, well, I think to follow on from what you said, because you're spot on. I think, Dean and I made a conscious decision to have a zero tolerance towards systems not actually talking with each other. The ability not to have a 360-degree view of all customer-related transactions, regardless of what division they were sitting in. Developer, investment manager, short-term holidays, residential real estate, commercial, all these things play out within DiJones. Just to make that decision is actually, it tests you to your core. It tests how much you actually truly believe.
Unlearn, relearn.
Yeah, it
Put
does.
a stack load of money into it. Time.
and in fairness, if I was to now come to the table today and say, okay, I'm now going to make that decision as a business owner. We made that decision 7-8 years ago. But if I was to be making that decision today, like all things, we'd probably do it differently now because we've got different tools available to us now to what we did back then. Yeah. However, you've got to get on that journey.
Yeah. Lots of learnings.
Yeah, lots of learnings. So, one, you have to, data is just such a raw form, cold space that too many real estate agencies I won't just say this country, I think it's globally, are sitting on valuable data where the person on the other end of that is actually wanting to have a relationship, but yet it's sitting in what I call cold storage, about to become a cold case. And then you're constantly coming back to it saying, well, how can I revive it? So for us, it's like, I'm not interested in having data that wants to be a relationship sitting in cold storage.
Well, you have to make use of it if you've got it, especially legally now as well with the Cybersecurity Act. If you've got, from a literal data perspective, if you've got data there that's not giving you use or utilization after a certain time frame, if you can't justify having it, it's illegal to have it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through that process, right? Yeah. So first things first, you have to get that data that wants to be a relationship all in one place. Then you have to actually pull that data apart, line by line, strand by strand, string by string, letter by letter and number by number numerical value. And then it allows you to put it back together in a certain way that creates insights. Insights are just that though. They're insights. And it challenges your executive team to say, great news. Like if I now wind it forward, great news, everything's all in one place. Great news, we've been able to pull this apart, put it back together, can ask any question and get insights. Now we see opportunities. Now what do we do? From there, you evolve into what I think is probably, the most valuable thing you can have in a business at the moment if you actually do have all of this sitting in one place. And that's the applications layer. Because the applications layer connects the raw cold storage through to the person that can actually do something with it, right? It actually gets the rubber to hit the tarmac. So we started to think through that. Then you have to build the capability to be able to deploy that applications layer and build that applications layer. You think about the evolution of a business right now and what it's having to do. And then you now have a look at that real estate agency that's sitting on the corner that literally is principal led and trying to list and sell primarily. That's where the income is. Now all of a sudden I've got this big problem on my hands. I've got a business that's actually needing my attention. It's all the tools for the business are now changing. How am I going to go about this? So inevitably consolidation has to hit the table, I think, because that infrastructure piece is critical to future.
Yeah, you want to think about agent of the future. It's not just what an agent's doing at a local level, but it's also the bones that support that agent in their local marketplace. It's really quite crucial. And unfortunately, a lot of these smaller businesses going forward will struggle if they don't have access to scale and infrastructure and single view of the customer, because those who do will be using those insights to gain competitive advantage and deliver a better outcome for the customer and for the agent. So it's a really important point. So just to bring you back though, as some real life examples of some of the stuff you'll be delivering next week, that might be worth.
Yeah, I guess at the core of our thought process is we took the shackles off, labels or tagging of the past. So things like CRM, gone. And really started to think through what is it that we're actually trying to create here. It's a vibrant marketplace that's transacting with itself on a daily through huge levels of efficiency, where everything's all in one home, that it doesn't matter what you're trying to do within the real estate space, you can do it here. It's the home of the DiJones marketplace. And so within the marketplace, the applications layer then becomes really exciting. You start to think through things.
Tentacles start touching everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, once you've started to connect all the dots, fintech solutions present themselves. As an example, something simple as a digital listing presentation for our agents, which we've been able to rebuild and rebirth. To have real-time information, real-time case studies, real-time market, what's on right now, all of those things. We've then connected that into, our proprietary perfect match application. So the digital listing presentation actually just draws through, hey, by the way, this person's new to market, been in market for 3 days, but already is a propensity buyer. Would you like to take advantage of that? So these are applications now that you've got everything.
And then tools that can target those buyers on behalf of the agent and all those other things to surface them up to, so the agent knows who the right buyers are for that property.
So from a tangible perspective,
it's bringing it all together.
This marketplace, how many applications or solutions do you think it's rolled into one?
Well, I mean, the beauty about an application is you can spin up an application and drop it down in a day. If you only need an application for a certain, part of your business and it's for a short period of time, or you might have long-standing applications that have fundamental value to the process. So, the fact that and hence the reason it challenges the thought of a CRM, doesn't it? Because a CRM is static. It's
analog.
It's got fields. It actually says, hey, by the way, this is the question base at the open home. So, having your data structured differently allows you to do things differently. So the answer to your question is it's infinite. So you can spin up as many applications as you want. You've got to have the capability to do it. But you've got to be listening to your organization as to what they need. But what a great conversation to have, because we hadn't been in that position in the past. Agents would say to us, you know what would be helpful? You know what would be handy? So the minute that you get that unlock, you get that efficiency unlock. So the agent then starts to get into that curious space of being quite innovative because they're at the cold face of actually saying, tell you what, if we could do this, this would be brilliant.
Well, because they're going to be the ones identifying the day-to-day efficiencies.
Yeah. So that brings to a really important point, actually, organically you've landed, which is the edge of a business in today's modern times of where we're at with technology and AI and all things that are actually quite complex. I think the only edge that exists is a company's ability to create a learning loop. How quick is it? How in detail is it? Is it in depth? Is it truly listening? Is it asking the right questions? If you've got everything else in place, that learning loop is actually your edge. I always say to my sales team, the winning sales team is the most educated one. And I don't mean that lightly. If you're going into the living room with charisma and a couple of tools, that's probably not going to cut it in 6 months' time to come back and answer your question from 10 minutes ago. What does it look like in 6 months' time? Highly educated, mayor of the market, micro business, dedicated to high levels of service and customer experience, 10 times efficient than you are today, using all of the tools and the fundamentals that are now available to you to create a seamless and efficient transaction and being able to increase the sales velocity for the customer.
And also for the agent should be able to handle more velocity because of those efficiency gains, because some of the things that they would have otherwise had to do, they don't need to do any longer. So if we can make sure that they understand the craft of their game and they understand the deliberate and proven process, they follow it and use the systems, then we should be able to get a better result for everyone. So they're the sort of things I think that have to happen for an agent of the future, because to Brent's point, things are moving so quickly that if you're not doing what you need to be doing, you're falling behind pretty quickly. So I'll be honest though, I think a lot of agents have heard that for a number of years and it hasn't necessarily interrupted their income, and they've still been able to sort of just put on a portal, turn it to an open, sell a property, go, why am I bothering with this? And that's okay. And I think there's been a lot of people in a lot of industries that have taken that view, particularly when, it's like being sort of stuck in concrete. I'm in the concrete and I can't get out of it because this is actually what funnels my life at the moment, and I don't want to make any changes because if I do, but if I'm going to make the change, it's quite significant. So I sort of feel like I'm stuck. What do I do? So you get a lot of people that are not making decisions, a bit like stick my head in the sand. I've got an agent who I won't mention, but for a number of years just kept on saying, hey, this AI thing just, it's all right. It's not, and it's only in the last 6 months has he gone, hey, I get it now, right?
Yeah.
There comes a critical point at which people understand and accept that changes need to happen. But if you're not doing it in advance of the change needing to happen, then you're behind the 8 ball. So I think agents of the future need to be ones that are prepared to interrupt themselves, prepared to challenge themselves, prepared to stay hungry, question things, be curious. It's all of that attitude, and I think there's a lot of agents in the industry that are really good at what they do. And then staying on top of this stuff is going to be crucial to their future.
So, a simple application that gives you a practical example of a problem that an agent might be dealing with that we solved just yesterday. It's consistently seeing, social post from an agent, which has really good intent, right? It's actually trying to inform the market, educate the market, but just not doing the agent a world of good in the way that it was presented, branding's off, those types of things that I think are really important, those finer details. Application built within Marketplace that actually allows the agent to not have to be those things anymore. Like from an AI application perspective, it's always going to be on brand.
What was it, a bit DIY graphic design or something?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that
Probably
out
sitting
there.
in their car, putting their own copy on stuff, and then just posting it to, I guess, I guess the people that know them, but they happen to be looking at that point in time. It's not targeted, it's not paid, it's not landing, so it's not actually efficient at all, and it's
there's
so old school.
You do see it on social media, a lack of understanding about how to
works.
craft audiences, and
Correct.
I see it all the time.
I
I speak to so many agents via socials, and it's like, well, you've got 300 followers on Instagram and we have about 250 mutual followers. So when you deduct your 250 agent followers, you've got no locals.
Yeah, so
I call it marketing to mirrors.
marketing to mirrors.
It's
Yes, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, it's marketing to mirrors. It's ineffective. And once again, you're not going to get away with not understanding the fundamentals of that moving forward.
Well, they're only doing it because they don't understand the fundamentals. And that's the point.
Yeah. So, applications can actually put that into, global benchmark pretty quickly at a really cheap cost for the agent, which actually, exponentially improves their ability to market a network to get their message out there. However, that I think has been, to Dean's point, it's been a narrative, but has it been reality? I think it's been a promise. I don't think it had been delivered upon. But now, those things are live now within our network. So these are no longer promises that you come in today and they're available, push a button, they're done.
And Brent, the thing is, just so we can get clear, because we can assume a lot of stuff, right? You mentioned digital listing presentation. Look, so what? Everyone's got a digital listing presentation now, right? But the ones that they often have are the ones that are off the shelf or from a third party that don't allow you to tap into all those integrated parts that Brent's talking about. So by having something that's been purpose built that actually connects to all those application layers that then reaches into the data and puts things in the right spot is where the difference is. So
even as simple as you can imagine you're a prospective seller. I've come to see you and, I'm pitching for the business and I've just run you through a presentation and we've made some on-the-spot changes to potentially what a marketing schedule could look like. Even just those things haven't actually been available to agents. And then to walk out, hit, order, and for that to be completely done.
Everything off the back spins up off the back of that.
Everything's just underway from the minute you walk out of the living room. You've probably just gained 4 days in efficiency. Literally, there are agencies there right now, and for those of you who are listening might be nodding your heads, but you'll do a listing presentation, then have to take that information back, go into another system. You'll have to build an agency agreement in another system. You'll then have to get that signed off. You'll then go and physically collect POI, possibly cite it, don't collect it. Then you'll bring that back. You'll then load that transaction into a CRM. You'll then take that transaction, its information, across into some sort of industry hub that allows you to order marketing materials. You'll then go and order those marketing materials. At a finance perspective, you can't reconcile those logs. That's a completely manual process. Now you've been given a lead time by a supplier just to turn up to do a shoot. That could be 24 hours, 48, 72, depends on what you're doing. You'll then wait for that to actually come back. As you can see, there's too many systems, too many friction
the agents
points.
Maybe employ an admin assistant to help them, or they might be trying to do it themselves, or whatever's going on, right?
But imagine,
all of that can be completely removed.
Now imagine you walk in, it's an interactive digital listing presentation that's real time. It's actually pulled all case study data in market today. You actually can interact, design your campaign, hit one button, and everything's working for you. That creates efficiency for an agent to do more. I think that's been our dream for a long time.
Yes.
So
how do we help the agent be able to handle more transactions is really important. How do we give them the efficiency and how do we generate leads? They've been our two mantras, and it all comes back to this centralized focus of saying, well, if you've got access to the information, how do you then get the insights and then harness it? So so we're really excited by what's coming forward, and I think that the agent of the future is an exciting looking sort of proposition. You just want to be on the right side of it.
No, absolutely. Now, conscious of your time, because I do have one more question that I'd love to throw to the audience, because as in the both of you, education's been a pretty constant discussion point throughout this. And Dean, you actually used the word unlearn earlier, which I thought, well, there's actually going to be a lot of stuff that we do need to unlearn going into the future.
Yeah.
Social media is a great example of that because it's just busy work. How much busy work do you have day to day? But what are the traditional skills that people, if you've been an agent for a few years, it was always drummed into you that you need to be really good at this? What traditional skills are becoming less and less necessary or needed going into the future? I'll throw it open.
That's a good question. I think the sales skills and the craft of being a salesperson at its core is not a skill that's ever going to leave a real estate agent. I think your ability to get to a level of trust really quickly is something that will always be there. However, I think your skill level and being able to drive a system and all of the tools that are in that system is something that agents don't have at the moment because those systems are now new. They're only now coming online. And so therefore, if you think about the manual process of preparing for a pitch in the living room, pretty much everything you're doing right now, including printing, binding, laminating, that whole that's gone. The consumer understands the digital age. They're actually evolving and going through this process with us at the same time. They now have expectations.
Yeah, they're living it in their own lives.
And I can't tell you how many times I hear this, and it'll probably resonate out there. Brent, I don't think you understand my customer. They don't have mobile phones. They don't have email addresses. Really? I look at grandmother, grandparents, etc. They're all got mobile phones.
Yeah, I text my 99-year-old grandfather quite regularly.
They are on Facebook.
Yeah.
They're in social media platforms. They can be found now. And don't get me wrong, sure, there's a small percentage of the audience out there, but I personally believe we've evolved to a point where we're in really single digits here now. So that argument doesn't wash anymore. I think understanding how you're doing things at the moment and accepting is your first part, that actually it's already changed and you're actually probably behind the eight ball. I think we're all behind the eight ball. I think that's a fair comment. I think things are advancing so fast. So what gets thrown out the window? Who you are doesn't get thrown out the window. The sales craft does not get thrown out the window, but it has to evolve because the craft now has to include systems that drive, sales velocity and efficiency. So like a good example of that would be the make an offer system. We've got a proprietary make an offer system built in to our business where all offers can come through that. You can transact at any time of the day. So if you're sitting on your couch at 11 p.m. at night and you want to make an offer on a property, you can. If you actually want to put that into a contract, do a 66W and make it unconditional, you can do that too. So actually taking the shackles off time. Agents are very used to thinking that business is only available for transaction whilst they're available. Actually, it's not true anymore. A buyer can make an offer that can be immediately communicated to the vendor. As a matter of fact, a buyer and a vendor can actually come to an agreement on price without the agent even being involved, if you think about where systems are up to this day. So all of those things, those fundamentals and the technicals in and around understanding how to be the driver of that system, that's what a successful agent looks like in the future. And that's in the short-term future, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. It's constantly evolving.
I agree. I think that, you talk about the unlearn concept. I think that's a really important point. I think for an agent to be successful, and you think the heart connection still needs to be there and all the things that Brent just mentioned around the craft of how you do your role. I mean, that's all, and all the hustle and all the stuff that makes an agent good, that will stay. But learning the new way to do real estate is what the process is here. And it's not a one-off thing. A lot of people think, I've learned that. I've got that piece under control. And then next thing you know, 90 days later, there's something else that they need to learn. So I think it's really that willingness to be curious, to want to learn, to know that innovation is constant and at a rapidly changing and ever increasing rate. So, to think I've just learned how to use that, that's great. But next month you'll need to learn something else. So in my mind, we need to let go of thinking this is the way it's always been done. And when I was listening to Brent, I was thinking, we've all been through the journey of agents that used to just once upon a time put it in the front window of the shop and put a signboard out. Then it was classified ads, and then it was gloss. And I remember when we went through the process of just going from ads in the Mossman Daily or or went with Courier across to realestate.com and domain, and the furor that caused. And then when social media came on board, and then all of a sudden people doing videos, it was like, oh, hold on, people watch more content, getting agents to understand how videos work. And now we're just moving into the next iteration, which I think is an even bigger iteration of the way life will be done. And I was reading something yesterday, and it says it doesn't really matter anymore where you rank on Google. It just matters whether agentic AI picks you up. Yeah. You're right. And so also, what does that mean? I mean, if I talk to an agent right now about how does agentic AI work and what does it mean and what should they be doing to actually make sure that they're getting picked up in search, because search has fundamentally changed and will continue to change. I'm like, they don't understand that. And therefore, they don't understand what it means, where they should be publishing their properties to first, what sort of content they should be producing, how you optimize for that. And I look at that and go, well, that's just one thing that's right here, right now, that I think that people are going, no, well, it's okay. I don't need to. Look, that seems a bit, complicated. I'll just keep doing what I've been doing over here, not realizing that those decisions are actually impacting them and will impact them in the long term. So,
well, especially if you're using AI, ChatGPT as a research tool, and
people do,
and it's the same logic as Google SEO optimization, right? Search engine optimization, but ChatGPT optimization. If you've got a website which you have to sign up, or if you've got an ad banging up before you're clicking through to content, you're making yourself very unsearchable through ChatGPT. So if all of your competitors are listed, if you type in most trusted real estate agent Sydney's lowest North Shore and you're not in the top 5, you're pretty unfound.
Yeah, well, and that'll be the same for everything. Yeah. I mean, you can sit and do the same thing for searching for property, an agent to sell through, whatever it is. All of those things are changing on how people do that, and they're not relying on doing their own Google. They're relying on Gemini or Grok or whatever they're using, right? Or maybe a combination of all of the above. So just understanding that, and then going right back to how do you do business, and going, right, well, fundamentally, I need to change some things here. I think there's a lot of head in the sand around that. So I think there's a lot of people sleepwalking into oblivion. Yeah. Right. If they don't realize that they need to keep unlearning what they think they know and keep relearning. And I think you need to be up for that challenge and that hustle.
And that's the disruption to business as usual. Now, gents,
hence DiJones University, I guess.
Hence DiJones University.
I was about to say, do you know what we need?
And then we'll do one more shameless plug, because that's the award that you won last night, the REB Awards. Gentlemen, I know you both have a pretty packed schedule today, so thank you so much for joining me in the podcast.
Fun.
No, thank you.
We enjoyed it.
Great fun, always.
That was DiJones CEO Dean Mackie and Chief Operating Officer Brent May. And that is all we have time for today on the REB Podcast. But until next time, bye-bye.